Okay, 1 second. Why is it not doing that now?
Let's see. I'm gonna try something here.
All right. So we are live. Okay, I like that. All right. That's cool. That's a lovely way to bring us in. All right. Well, thank you for that. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Fear the North podcast. We are back. I'm Irie Harris. Back with the lovely, okay, I said lovely this time, lovely Chris Murray, established author, journalist, and the lovely Sapphire.
I love it.
Okay, wait. The wise Chris Murray, the smooth operator himself. I, I can't even go in anymore, man. I'm gonna start laughing on this.
Lovely is probably the least of the things you can describe me as. Okay, I'm one of those people. I never subscribed to the fact that I was a pretty boy and all that, and I was happy that I joined a particular fraternity that wasn't known for being pretty, but it's what I have in between my ears, outside the wax and everything that counts. So that's one thing. But pretty is nothing. Is not a way you describe me. Smooth, handsome.
There you go.
There it is.
Smooth operator.
Oh wow, I'm impressed.
Okay,
Were you even born when that song came out?
Yeah, I remember when that song. Yeah, I was gonna say, were you even born when? Yeah, that's a good question.
So, regarding the vision at hand, the subject matter of the show, and my birth another day at that, there's quite a bit to talk about right now amongst the Browns, amongst the Bengals, amongst the Ravens, amongst the Steelers. A lot to dive into. Man, oh man, where do we start? I think it's just time to go right to the dumpster fire. Maybe see if we can put it out through our conversation. We probably won't be able to, but we'll try and see. The Browns, they suffered another loss. Their 7th loss of the season, that is, through 9 games, in a 27-10 blowout loss at home to the Los Angeles Chargers. And it is another win for head coach Jim Harbaugh, leaving Ohio victorious once again. Real fun fact before we dive into it. Did you guys know that combined right now between within his entire coaching career, college, professional combined, he is 10-5 versus Ohio-based teams. College, Dayton, Ohio State, wherever, professional, Browns, Bengals, he's 10-5. I just thought that would be interesting to point out. Like he's winning right now, man. Wherever he goes.
It's curious. It's interesting, but is it really out of the realm of possibilities given that he is an Ohioan, right? He understands the roots of how the game of football is played, should be played, right? He understands the formula for success. I still consider like Northern Ohio, Cleveland, the western portion of the East Coast, right? But that Midwest line is pretty close to the Ohio-Indiana line, right? And when I think about where the Harbaughs hail from, which is Northwestern Ohio, it's curious and really not lost on me that someone from this part of the world, which is steeped in rich football history, not only at the professional level, Irie and Chris, but at the collegiate and also high school level.
Well, I tell you what, there's one state in this country that is probably grateful to the state of Ohio for a lot of reasons. Number one, Bo Schembechler, coached in Ohio. Okay, remember Bo Schembechler. You also remember, Desmond Howard. Where did he play football? Where did he play his high school football? In Cleveland. Okay,
that's hard.
So they've given the state of Michigan, especially the Ann Arbor portion. I come from the East Lansing portion of that equation. They have given Ohio, that portion of Michigan, basically mostly Ohio people. Like I said, I think between all those things, Woody, basically Woody Hayes, one of former Woody Hayes' assistants is Bo Schembechler.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that, and you should, and I'm glad, Sapphire, you pointed out that history. You pointed out that particular history, and and that's what that is. But I want to talk about the pros, though, man. I mean, it's just one of those things where I just, I was just telling, and I saved this for this particular occasion. I was just telling Irene. I was just telling and Irene, that it kind of reminded me of like this week's last week's game. Like when they first show the Star Wars movie, chapter 8, A New Hope. Jameis Winston has joined the Cleveland Browns cause and basically turned back the evil Ravens empire and whatnot. And then and then this week I don't know. I've been watching some of the highlights and all this other stuff, and it's just, man, and I gotta ask you guys I'll let you guys talk. What incarnation is going on with Cleveland? You would have thought that they would have built on that victory. Sometimes, I've seen teams have tough years, late in season, and they get a victory, they build on it, they start, okay, let's think about next year, or could we possibly salvage our season and all that, being a spoiler or whatever, doing whatever you got to do. And then this game happens. And this game happens against the Los Angeles Chargers, and please count the times if I say San Diego, because I'm going to say San Diego.
I'm with you there.
But guys, from your perspective, tell me what happened, because tell me what happened in between the highlights and in between the lines.
Irene, no, I'm gonna give this to you. You are the Browns beat reporter. Bring it.
You're too generous. Oh God, where do I even? Man. I've been thinking all day if how to even approach this, because there's so much to dive into. All right, let's try to go step by step with it. Number one, well, Jameis is, for one, everybody collectively knew and understood Jameis Winston's style of play and the tendencies and pros and cons of that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It worked in Week 8 versus Baltimore. He had a hat trick in the genre of touchdowns. It did not work this past Sunday versus the Chargers. He did have a hat trick, but in the genre of interceptions. That is number one. Number two, defensively, they were fine up front. Like they were dominant in the first half. Like all of the 6 sacks that they recorded on Justin Herbert all came in the first half. Miles Garrett had 3 of his own. 2 of those came within that last series towards of the first quarter. So we had that, but then it was the backfield though that wasn't matching them within their play as well though, because while they're doing that and they're forcing third downs, including that 3rd and 21, somehow the Chargers come back and they find a touchdown, and there was the blown coverages within the backfield. And Sapphire, I know you want to get to that regarding the zones they were in. Cover 2, up front, high right, cover 3, next play. Supposed to be Thornhill going deep or Ward, but within the deep third thing, and Thornhill would communicate. Yeah, that's what it was within the synopsis part of it. And on top of that, I mean, overall, just being honest, they're back to business, man. They're back to regular schedule program. The regular schedule program is that this is a bad football team and a team that's hard to watch this season. They decided to get spontaneous on us for 1 week, but now they're back to regular schedule program. And I would be surprised if something did not happen to talk about ahead of the trade deadline this week. Sapphire, please.
I mean, everything you said. Listen, like you said, Chargers came out and showed Winston and Mr. Dorsey and Coach Stefanski and every single eyeball that was watching that game, too deep safety defense, right? So in my mind, the natural thing to do would be to establish the run. We talk about that every week, but just take what the defense is giving you That's what common sense says should be done. But what I saw was nothing but inefficiency. With all due respect, the Browns O was inefficient. And then I started remembering, because where I was at, of course, people were, virtually jumping off bridges. I thought to myself, the week before, all of you wonderful, fair weathered friends, tarred and feathered one Deshaun Watson. You put the onus of the Browns season on one player's shoulders. It was all his fault, right? The next week, Jameis comes out, does his thing in one game versus a team in the Ravens that played down to their competition, right? And it was like the second coming of the Savior. Okay. Now that Deshaun Watson has been proven to be ineffective and not a leader and can't throw the football and can't manage, the offense, you were all I heard was the Browns can make a run, the Browns can get to the playoffs. Like, what drugs? And where did you get those drugs? Where you smoke?
I want some of those.
I mean, okay, I do too, right? And I remember talking to Chris about this. It's like, maybe I'm tending to lean towards conspiracy theorists, but separate from the fact that there was no run game, that Jameis Winston was inefficient, that the defense, I don't even know why Denzel Ward was on that field, but I know we're going to get to that. Separate from all of that, I just feel like that offense, the way that it looked pretty familiar to me, as in times where Deshaun Watson started those games. So now I'm in my feelings and in my own head thinking, is Stefanski tinkering with the play calling? I mean, it just looked a little familiar to me. Like, I don't know what I don't know, but it was by far one of the ugliest performances that I have ever seen on all sides of the game, save for a couple of standout players. And we know Myles Garrett is the top of that list. But to me, the Browns are and continue to be in complete rebuild mode. So how are they going to do that and keep the fans engaged, right? More importantly, keep the players engaged. I mean, it continues to be a hot mess. The Browns are the worst team in 2024 in the NFL.
Not as bad as Jacksonville, but gone. Or just as bad as Jacksonville. You never know.
I would agree with that.
Well, I've been looking at these highlights all day with the Browns, and what I see and what I saw was, the defense started off looking great and everything, but when your offense doesn't move, sometimes even the best defenses break down. And I just think that looking at as I'm watching the highlights and looking at this, and then I want to look at some things. I want to look at some things on the box score. Jameis Winston threw 3 interceptions, was sacked 6 times for 22, lost of 22 yards, and one touchdown, and that was it. But it seems like throughout the game, the Browns just couldn't get out of the way of themselves, and they just could not. The defense, I think, showed more effort than the offense. Let me say that. But the offense, man, what are they doing? Why not go back to the run game? Why not start? I mean, are they including Nick? I mean, isn't Nick Chubb back in his second game?
You got to slide to the right to see Nick Chubb's 39 yards on 15 carries. And this is one of the points. Like, there was so much, there was such a lack of patience for the run game. Just complete lack of patience. And then they just threw it out the window with the kitchen sink. Like, it just really begs the question of who is running the ship. Or has there been a mutiny, right?
Well, let me say this. When you're down 20-3 at halftime, there's a tendency to not want to run the ball. And sometimes you shouldn't get away from running the ball. Because I've seen teams who were down by that much runs continue to run the football just to get some continuity in the offense and just to try to get, just to get some momentum going. Something. Sometimes when you're down in the game like that, you have to basically try everything you can to basically try to get back in the game. You don't need to throw the football every time. You don't need to just get back and throw it. But they look like a team that, what are we doing here? What are we trying
Exactly.
to establish? If we're down by 20-13 or 20-3 at halftime, and they had plenty of chances to get back in the game. It took them a while because the Chargers didn't score that many points in the second half.
Mhm.
And it looked like they had their shots. I mean, am I right, Irie?
Yeah, and that's what was kind of further crazy when thinking about this performance and talking about, because it wasn't like the scoreboard says one thing, but it wasn't an overall bad performance by the defense. Like there were opportunities and times in which they held the Chargers off. You know, like that's why I mentioned how ludicrous it was regarding the blown coverages, because it wasn't like the Chargers were moving. Were traveling far downfield. It literally happened because of the fact that after sacking Herbert for a loss of 8, suddenly on that blown coverage and that miscommunication in the backfield, that's like Los Angeles's get out of jail free card. And then because the offense, there was a lack of cohesion. And actually, what's so funny, man?
What?
After the game, Khalil Mack was talking about their goals and what they were looking ahead of doing, and a couple of them, of course, what was being, and he said it himself, stopping 24 because they were looking for that, which you know they did, as you said earlier, the 39 yards off 15 carries. So, all right, they limited him stuff. Could they have given Chubb a bit more runs? That's arguable, but they did job. However, he also said that he knew Jameis was going to give them some opportunities for interceptions as well. So they knew, they expected, because of his tendency for erratic throws, and that's really what it was as well. Because you're talking about opportunities, Chris. That first interception, even though Chubb 39 yards of 15 carries, the fact that it's a second and goal and you're 4 yards away from the end zone, why are we still passing the ball? That's number one. It didn't have to. And I
Yeah.
saw Judy slightly open, just slightly in the corner. He went just slightly. James didn't get enough oomph on it. Doesn't go over him. It's tipped, caught, and intercepted. All right, that happens. He said it was a good play after the game. All right, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I still believe it should have been a Chubb run, because you don't need you don't need 10 yards to get into the end zone. You only need 4. He's good for 4, and you know that he's just hungry to get back into the end zone. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number
And then
two,
wasn't there a drive where in the red zone where Winston got sacked and everything? I mean,
yeah,
Look,
and
it gets to a point to where they're going to probably have to clean house next year. I mean, that's just they're
next
going to
year,
have they're going to have to get move people out of there and all that. And I know y'all like, damn, we got to rebuild this thing again. Dang, and it's all nice and good and whatnot, but at the end of the day, they've got to build a consistent program, find a coach, because they're going to have to basically, because I know Myles Garrett is probably tired of this situation. I know some of the
satire.
better I know some of the players, Denzel Ward and some others are like, some of the vets are like, you know
listen,
what?
man.
What
I don't think
are we
Denzel.
doing here?
I don't think Ward knows that he's even standing on planet Earth.
Dang.
I was so shocked to see him in that game. I believe the networks actually had him listed as inactive due to concussion. So to see him out there, and then what they tried to characterize as miscommunications between he and Thornhill, Was it cover 2? Was it cover 3? Like, I just am concerned for, I don't know the man, just concerned for him as a human being, right? But to your point, and I want to, before I go back to your point about the rebuild, even being down 17 at halftime, the Browns had the first possession in the second half. You had 30 minutes left, right? Start, at least think about establishing the run, because you've talked about this in previous weeks. You need a balanced attack, or at least to compel your opposition to think that you have a balanced attack, right? And it's just, I just see it was like watching a college football team underperform, you know? And it's like, at what point does this organization just simply own it? And, and I said to Irie earlier, I'm like, to your point, Chris, you have had a workhorse in Myles Garrett for a handful of years. He's the face of your franchise.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't the right thing to do include having a real conversation behind closed doors with Myles Garrett, saying, hey, we want to hit this head on before the media get involved, before the fans get riled up. This is where we're at as an organization. We know that we need to rebuild, right? Do you want to be a part of this, or can we, out of respect for you, help you find a new home that's going to give you the greatest probability to get to the big dance? That is, because you're going to get value for him, but to at least give him that extent of respect. That's where I'm at as a Browns fan, because enough is enough. Like, the wheels have fallen off, right? We're in Fred Flintstone territory where we're pushing the car with our feet, man. It's over for 2024. Let's just deal with the reality of it.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I can't even. Not that I could add on to it because it was lovely said, but yeah, Myles Garrett to me is at that. He is in his Reggie White stage right now of his career. Doesn't have anything more to prove to show that he's worthy of being in the league. He's one of the best players in the league, regardless of position or either side of the ball. Point blank period, reigning defensive player of the year. What else left is needed now for a Hall of Fame career? Wins, especially wins that come postseason time. And Cleveland right now, there's not much confidence implied that this is the place that will be able to do it for him. So yeah, and it's just gonna be very interesting to see what happens. And even before that, even going within the trade deadline, that's how you really know where this team feels right now that they could be, not just this year, but then also going forward, because of the fact you have Watson for 2 more seasons technically on the contract, because of the fact that you have 2 wins right now. And it's the bye week. Andrew Berry does speak on Wednesday, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's just very, very. And actually, just to kind of go further, real quick, when talking about that game, I mean, can we just go back real quick to the interceptions? Because I know I already mentioned the first interception, but then that second interception, was there a missed timing, just misplaced between him and Cedric Tillman? Like, I was unsure if they were defending Tillman strongly, or if he just or if Winston just overthrew and just misplaced it, because it looked like it was going to no man's land until Los Angeles' Gilman dove and caught the ball. I thought it was just gonna hit the ground. Nope, he dove for it and he caught it.
Yeah, that second interception. But the most damning interception, as I'm looking here,
that last one,
was 2nd and goal at the LA 4.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Tip in the end zone.
And the thing is, when you're there, I mean, how much of a momentum swing is that? That kills you. And I'm gonna tell you something. It's like, I go by the Denzel Washington mantra, and remember the Titans. If you fumble or turn the ball over, I'm gonna put my foot in your rear end. And in that situation, the worst time to ever have turnovers. And I can see it because I'm still mad at Zay Flowers from January and whatnot. I'm still mad about that. Okay. you can't. I hate when teams turn the ball over just when you're about to score and you're about to somehow upset the momentum of the game and basically put a thought in the other team's head that, hey, we better do something or this team is going to be back in the game. That kind of stuff that kills, and in that situation that just killed Cleveland. That was really pretty much it. It was let me see. It's basically in the third quarter. It's coming out in the third quarter. And it was the interception. Yeah, or was it? Or was that? It was at the end of the second quarter and whatnot. Look, it was at the end of the second quarter.
You're talking about that first interception, the one from the second and goal before? Yeah. That was there. So thank you for asking that. That was their first series coming out of halftime. They were down
out of halftime.
Yeah,
that killed you.
They were down 20-3 going into the half, but they got the ball back at the half. So you kind of get that sense of a chance. Like, okay, we get the ball first. Let's go out and score and keep this game alive. Let's get bring some life into the stadium, into this team and our chances. They go out there and they're one of the best within taking their time. They use over 8 minutes, 16 seconds to be exact, and it ends in that manner. And by the way, because the play before was also a pass play to Tillman, who dropped it before he got cracked in the end zone, but it had already bounced off his body. And they go with another pass. I expected a run. You got the pass out the way the first play. I expected a quick, halfback power.
Quick, give it
straight up. Straight up the B gap on the left side. That's what I thought was going to happen. Not it got to be up the middle, up, just straight up the B gap. That's what I thought was going to happen. Instead, they went with another pass play, and it ended in that manner. And it's so funny because one of my other OGs who was there, shout out Branson Wright, he told me at halftime. He said, if they do not score on their first series out of halftime, I'm leaving. They were this close to keeping them there. This close, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody tuning in.
I got to find Branson this weekend. But
the second,
14 plays, 66 yards. I got to look 66 yards. I got to look up close because the thing is
The second
yards. And that's a killer. You're upset, and Branson was right to leave.
The second that happened, I look back. I see him all the way on the other side of the press box within the seating chart, and I see him get up, take his glasses off, walk down. True story. I texted him right as that happened. I couldn't even get up quick to see if he was there. The second I turned around, I saw all in one motion. True story, man. True stills. So yeah, that was the killer right there. And you definitely saw some fans leaving the stadium after that, and you saw even more leave after his hat trick was complete within the interceptions genre. But like I was saying earlier, Sapphire before coming over, like that's why it just, as much as we're going to talk about how bad the interceptions were and stuff, like that's Jameis Ball. Like even Joe Battoni was talking about that a bit and stuff before and after week 8, like. That's kind of what has carried him over within his career. So, and it's led to good things. A national championship at Florida State, the number 1 overall selection. It's up to stay in the league, playing in his 10th season right now. It's also got its cons right now. You got the Fear the North podcast talking about your selection of passes in this manner. That's one of the many cons right now.
God bless you, Irie. God bless you. The Browns are in retail mode, right? They need to go shopping. Whoever's going to be the quarterback for that team next year, they need to invest in an offensive line.
Well, yeah, so I was just about to ask you, before they even worry about a quarterback, doesn't it make sense to just go straight for the O-line? Before they even make any changes within the coaching, you better go straight to the O-line, I would think.
I ain't gonna go that far.
Yeah, I would say so. I think you need to have an offensive line. Mm-hmm. I think that at the end of the day, what you need to do that's the first thing, because one of the things you don't want to do is bring some rookie quarterback. And I don't like it when teams try to because I think some rookie quarterbacks can get traumatized if they don't have an
DTR.
Yeah, DTR. DTR, I think, can be a good quarterback if you develop him. I really do.
In the Cleveland Browns current system?
No, not with the current system,
Okay.
but with guys around him. If you put things around him, have a coach who believes in his skills, I think he's a good mobile quarterback. I think he's just in the wrong situation. He might be in the wrong situation in Cleveland and whatnot.
I think he's petite. You know how I feel about
little guys.
He's petite. I think he's injury prone. I mean, again, we talk about the AFC North as a division. You better have your helmet strapped on right and your pads on before you step up on a gridiron in the AFC North. Okay.
And you better be able to run like Lamar.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right.
You better be able to run and Joe Burrow can run and so can Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. And so what I see, though, and I don't think maybe DTR, there's a kid down, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. There's a kid in Miami who may be coming out. Huh?
Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward. That boy can play. I haven't seen him. That guy can play. I mean, I seen him bring a team back. As much as I'm not a fan of the University of Miami, is she okay? Sapphire, are you okay?
Yes, I dropped my notepad. My bad, guys. My bad.
Okay. I do that. I do that a lot and everything. But like I'm saying, Cam, they need to get a quarterback, but you better have an offensive line. And how about running the ball? I mean, that's the thing. I'm looking at the play calls here and up on the play-by-play. I'm like, and I'm looking, and you look in the box score. In the box score to this game, and I'm looking at it right now. So as I'm going to the side here, how come Nick Chubb only has 15 carries for 39 yards? And then, matter of fact, Jameis Winston had the most average yards per rush, but why does he have 2.6 yards? His longest was 11 yards. Okay, right. Why aren't they giving the ball to Nick Chubb or getting Nick Chubb involved in the offense in the pass? Because in the passing game and whatnot as well, getting him involved, let him be in a situation where he can create havoc. I don't get this team, and I don't think the fans get the team either.
You're spot on, and I'm also going to say the Browns need to be looking at running backs in this draft as well. Mm-hmm. They do, because the way that they have understanding the man had a serious injury that he is recently back from. But the fact that they did not integrate him, even on some short routes, tells me there's a question either about his durability, his effectiveness, and then I bring it back to the play calling and those coaches. Did I say yet today that Bill Belichick is out there in the universe, not with the team right now, gentlemen?
I think
you said that, and I'm going to push back with you on Bill Belichick. Because I don't know, because he had kind of a similar young team situation in New England. I think Belichick was good for his time, and I have a friend. My friend in Kansas believes that he should take Harbaugh's place in Baltimore, and I'm skeptical of that. They need a good, young, dynamic coach who understands pro offenses today, maybe, or something. I don't know if Belichick is going to be. I mean, he might be. He might be. I've seen things, I've seen older coaches be retreaded. I mean, I'm looking at Sean Payton in Denver, and I don't think he's, doing much for the Broncos. We'll talk about that game. But I'm not so sure about that. And I'm going to push back in the sense that, just to say, I'm skeptical of that. Well, I'm skeptical of bringing in a Belichick. I'm skeptical.
And let me say this.
Okay, we'll come back. Well,
I'm also talking about general manager.
Yeah.
I think he's adept at identifying talent, even later round talent that can fit into a system, right? And perhaps that next coach is going to need to partner with the general manager with that kind of history to really understand what is the system we want to implement here. Right. And who are the available players out there that best fit or would work into the system? I submit to you, the Cleveland Browns, it doesn't feel like they ever really did that. And I'm talking about going out and getting Deshaun, right? I mean that. Did they really look at his capabilities even a year out of the game, right? And really strategize about what system they could put around him to optimize his strengths? To me, they need to, what was the word that I used earlier, Chris? A colonoscopy. They need to clean it out. Get in there, up in the corners, clean it out. Front office, thank you. Here are your severance checks. Have fun buying your homes on your own private island. They need to rebuild this team.
It kind of now when you said that, what came to my mind, the colonoscopy and all that, it came to my mind the movie Beavis and I want a full cavity search, and that was, I'm sitting there because what's his name? Was it Robert Stack who played? Who played in that
way
movie?
Back.
That's Beavis and Butthead. I want to. They had this big old burly woman. I want to. She pulled her gloves. I want a full cavity search, and I was just like, oh my god. And so when I hear that was, that triggered me because
it triggered you the right way, because that's exactly what I was implying. Because I'm seeing more and more seats, at the Browns home games, right?
Right.
It's a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
And so, where I was at on Sunday, people were going in on the owners of the team now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a sense that they really didn't care. They weren't invested, right?
Wow.
And they're letting things go because they're just like hands off. I just think also perhaps this is a changing of the guard in terms of the culture of the fan, Cleveland Browns fans. Is this okay for you, right? Do you really care about how your team is connected to your community, right? There are people that work all year round to afford these tickets, and to see week in and week out what they have experienced this year, heart bleeds for Browns Nation. So it'll be interesting to see, I don't know if the Browns are going to go all New Orleans Saints and clear out their offensive coaches.
Yeah, they fired Dennis Allen today, and the Saints started off great. They beat up Carolina, they beat up Dallas, and then they played the Philadelphia Eagles, who exposed them a little bit. And they just got, that happens. But the Browns, I feel bad for them in that sense, in that somebody is asleep at the switch in the organization, and that can dishearten fans and whatnot. Because I remember back, in the last days of the old Baltimore Colts, and the Colts weren't winning, and the fans were like, and the thing about Cleveland, Baltimore, Philly, Pittsburgh, and all the East Coast, and even DC, because in recent years, before this year, I saw an entire fan base disengage. I remember a couple of years ago, I was covering Eagles in 2022. I went down to Landover, Maryland to cover Eagles and Washington football team, as they were called at that point. And I remember the shock I felt, when I saw that Philly fans took over. And I was saying to myself, I looked around and said, "Wait a minute, where's the Broad Street line? Where's NRG? Where's NRG Station and whatnot? Where's Chickies and Pete's, for Christ's sake?" I was like, "Where are all these places?" Because I can't be in Washington. I must have driven the wrong car the wrong way, and it was like, and I lived in Washington for a long time. Those fans are when the old franchise, when the Redskins were winning, oh my God, they were impossible to live with. and whatnot. I mean, they were that fan base was impossible to live with, to the point where I rooted against them every time I rooted against them, because they were loud, obnoxious fans. And on one hand, that's a good thing. It just ticked me off as a Baltimorean. But but the thing about it, that fan base had gotten to a point where they were so disengaged, they were just praying that they get rid of Dan Snyder, and they finally did.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes that's a danger. It's the same thing how when the Ursays moved Baltimore to Indianapolis, everybody, and the way and the sneaky way they did it really pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah, it was
but
crazy.
The thing is, it's you sometimes you can do that to a fan base, to a loyal fan base that really loves the team and everything.
Well, you're gonna see a repeat of that when the Steelers come here to play the Browns. You can expect to see Huntington Bank Field full of those terrible towels that you love so much.
There's a nice terrible towels place that strike in Cleveland, and they'll be everywhere because they'll be upset.
The Steelers have won. The Steelers have won. The Steelers have won.
Woo! We talk about opening up a can of whoop butt.
Well, yeah, I feel we've spoken quite a bit on the struggles of the Browns, which is per usual within their factory of sadness that keeps on going. Let's talk about something good within our lovely AFC North division. Right? Let's talk about some wins. Let's talk about the Ravens blowing out the Broncos, 41-10. Then keeping Denver to 10 points. Denver scored all 10 points in the second period. And talking about a can of whoop, Baltimore definitely bought that. They looked exactly. They looked themselves in the eye. They did a nice soul search between the loss to Cleveland, who still sits at 2 wins, all the way through Saturday, and they woke up Sunday ready to go out there and whoop, which they did. Lamar Jackson running out of words to even describe him right now, man. 280 on the day, three scores. We're talking about the Browns needing to run the ball more. Well, the Ravens made sure they did that with Derrick Henry, especially more this this week. He had 11 carries last week versus the Browns. They upped it to 23 carries this week. That went on for 106 yards and 2 scores. Chris, you're talking about how mad you are still at Zay earlier in the year for fumbling the ball. He made up for that once again, catching 5 of his 6 targets right now for 127, 2 touchdowns caught, but then Lamar's done. And furthermore, Pro Football Focus credits Lamar with completing all 5 of his targets that traveled 20 or more yards downfield. That meant it was deep ball territory anywhere, wherever you wanted it to be. Immediate thoughts on the Ravens and the dominating win over Denver. I know that's what we all expected, them going out there,
right?
But immediate thoughts within them to be able to bounce back in this manner.
For the 4th time in his career, Lamar Jackson had a perfect quarterback rating. He was 158.3. As you said, 16 of 19, 280 yards, 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Zay Flowers, and they got Deontay Johnson coming in here, and that's going to be crazy. That's going to be nuts. But what they did nothing fancy. They stuck with their running game. I think early in the game, I mean, their first possession, they got sacked. But after their first possession, and then after a goofy play call which led to a field goal, they just marched up and down the Denver Broncos defense like General Sherman marched through Georgia at the end of the Civil War, or the way General Patton, marched through Europe and whatnot, through through the end of World War II. And basically they ran the ball, King Henry, gets 2 touchdowns. But then you get then near the end of the first half, what probably put the game out of reach was when Lamar hit Zay Flowers and turned what could have been just like a long pass play to set up field goal position into a touchdown. They went after the Broncos got their 10. Basically, the Ravens went on something like the Ravens kind of like went on some type of run where they scored on all the rest of their possessions, and it was just and they kept it simple. And I'm gonna say why, because they should have done that to Cleveland, but I think they you can't get cute. You can't get cute like like the guys that play further up I-95 corridor from me from my home in Delaware. Okay, you can't get cute. Try to go for it on fourth down, or try to go for 2-point conversions and all that. Kick the field goal, get out and whatnot, win the game. You don't need that. And as I said to you earlier, it's like somebody taking an AK-47 to kill a mouse. You don't take an AK-47 to kill a mouse and everything. You get those little sticker things from Home Depot. And like I say, that's what you do. But at the end of the day, this is what the Ravens have, and the defense played a lot better. Although Bo Nix had his open receivers, he had his guys. Their first drive, he overthrew their first field goal. He overthrew a wide open guy in the end zone. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't give the Ravens that kind of opening and not take advantage of it. And the thing about it, watching that game, I was just like, okay, it's going to be like that. But and then after a while, the defense settled down, having Marlon Humphrey back, having some other guys step up and come up with plays and all that. I mean, the Ravens had 4 sacks in the game. Their defense, in terms of passing statistics, did not give up. They didn't give up a lot of yards, didn't give up a lot of big plays. And basically, when it looked like, those other situations where teams have come back, they just turned them away. And, the way the Ravens offense is playing right now, Lamar Jackson's an MVP candidate, but he could get beaten out by King Henry. And Lamar is at a point in his career, Lamar doesn't care about whether or not he wins the third MVP. What's on Lamar's mind? He's trying to get to January. That guy is at that point in his career. MVP, been there, done that. Okay. He is trying to get the Ravens to January. If they have home field or whether on the road, that man wants to win. I don't think he cares where they are. And the thing I think he's pointing to is Kansas City, because everybody's saying he can't beat Patrick Mahomes. I think he's going to get him this time. I do. He's going to get him. They're going to get him. I know I'm sounding like one of the Waynes, but I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. We're going to get him. No, but they're going to get him. I mean, I think they will. And I think I've never seen Lamar this laser. I mean, he is focused. He's focused. He's playing the game with a confidence in all the years I've seen him play that he's never played with before and whatnot. I've never seen him play with the kind of confidence that I see from him right now. I've never seen that before.
Tunnel vision.
I agree with every single syllable that you just shared. Right. And I also think, the only concern that I have is based on Lamar. I think he's been hit like 105 times this season. Mm-hmm. We know that he was out a couple of days, a little R&R, right? Right. I get concerned about that,
that's true.
You just talked about how physical the AFC North is, but what I think is really understated in this is, of all the trash talking in all the juke joints, that Lamar could not beat a team from the pocket. What did he show yesterday?
He can beat you from the pocket.
He can beat you from the pocket. He faced I think they were ranked number 3 defense in the league that I think on average didn't allow more than 15 points per game. Right? Mm-hmm. These stats, and we could read them. Henry, 101 career rush TDs. He's now the 8th all time, right? You had Zay Flowers have multiple touchdowns and over 100 receiving yards in the same game, right? You can go on and on about these stats, but to me, Lamar Jackson showed not that he had to prove anything, that he's multifaceted. He could beat you different ways. And to your point, I think he's ready to beat KC this year.
I think he is, barring injury, barring the usual kinds of I'm trying. I say I need to get my spiritual people in the house to ward off all the bad luck things and
The
all
bad
that.
juju.
Yeah, that's the thing. But in all seriousness, I think the defense does need some help. I hope they make before tomorrow. Maybe they have some deal in place where they get somebody, maybe get an edge rusher from somewhere,
Miles
not from
Garrett.
yeah, not from Cleveland. If Cleveland did that, that's equivalent. See another thing. Years ago, the then Baltimore Bullets traded Hall of Famer Earl Monroe to the New York Knicks, but he turned another Hall of Famer, Clyde Frazier, and I never forgave them for that. I would never forgive them for that. Don't trade it. Don't trade it to your Eastern Conference rival and all that. I don't think Cleveland would do that. But maybe next year, maybe next year, he might come down. I mean, and I mean Patrick Queen is in Pittsburgh. He played for the Ravens
Yeah,
last year,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
but the thing about it, the Ravens have to avoid their biggest opponent outside of Pittsburgh, and maybe some of the NFC East teams. Maybe their biggest opponent is themselves and whatnot, and that Jim Harbaugh. Please don't overthink the game. Just play the game, beat the crap out of the team, and go home, and all that. That's all you got to do. That's all. Don't overthink. Don't get all. Don't try to get all fancy Dan trying to. Hey, we're gonna go. We're gonna do a jet sweep with a reverse and a triple somersault, and Lamar will jump up in the air and pass downfield. Don't do that. Just play smash mouth football. Beat the crap out of your opponent. That's it. It's a simple game. You
Well,
know.
that to me is what I'm looking forward to seeing on Thursday night as we transition over to the Bengals. I just they're on cruise control. The Baltimore Ravens are on cruise control, right? So we'll see what fleshes out on Thursday. But again, for me, it's Lamar Jackson and his durability, the team's ability to protect him even more for the duration of the season.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
And
Yeah,
speaking of those Bengals, I think I see Joe Burrow, his highlights fading. Is that how you say it? They're fading,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The color and stuff a little bit going back to normal as regular hair color. Maybe that's why they won.
Well, I'm going to start this conversation out by saying I'm feeling his body language. Do you notice a lot of people around him when they show the shots of him sitting on the bench? Do you notice the expression on his face?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is locked in as well. And I think he's sending a nonverbal message to his team. We're not there yet. We won a game we should have won. We're not there yet. I'm not satisfied. We have to put more work in. What were your takeaways from the Bengals game on yesterday?
Yeah, pretty much what you had said right there. Then which he is locked in, and he understood that he had to set that tone. Which he went out and did quite a job at 5 touchdowns. That's hard hitting right there. And the way in which he was just fluid and really, like it took a second, but then once it got going, then that cohesion was just hard to beat and disrupt. A big improvement off of the recent loss to Philadelphia. I was glad to see him come out there and play the way we expected him to play from the start. And I did see those times as well, but then on the sideline in which he just was not satisfied at all. He's thinking we're up to 10 right now. It should be 30 right now. That's not enough. I mean, Burrow does what I get credit for is that he does still carry around that confidence that you hope your quarterback does. But you go back to
Right.
last week when he mentioned that he said they had to win seven of their last 9 games, and he said that's doable. Like that alone is setting the tone and saying, "Hey, we can do this." And pretty much that's what the way you're saying right there, Sapphire,
Yeah.
having to send that nonverbal message to his guys. It would have been nice to see a little bit more from his main target and Jamar Chase. I know that I know that Vegas had their own divisional scheme to kind of limit stuff and force other teams, especially within Mike Gesicki, to go out there and contribute the way he did with 5 catches for 100 yards and those 2 scores. But yeah, it's something that we have to hope we see a bit better of. But I think another example of just within like it's very funny because I think the Browns might. We're talking about the run game so much now it's got me thinking the Browns might be the only team within this lovely division that does not use their run game the way that we expect them to. Because then we talk about the Ravens doing so with King Henry, but then the Bengals have been really up in the run game with Chase Brown, another guy with 20 plus carries for under 20 yards. Even though that
20 yards, 4.4 yards per carry.
yeah, that didn't come
I
along
mean,
with any touchdowns, but man, did it keep the series moving at pivotal moments needed to help extend the lead. Why are the Boston doesn't do this? Oh God, why are we?
Well, I gotta say this about the Bengals. They discovered their running game, and I think the Bengals, like when the Ravens and the Bengals play each other, they're going to be smart. They're going to come into Baltimore because they kind of felt that they should have beaten Baltimore in that game. They're going to come into that game believing that that they're going to come in such a short turnaround this week for both teams. Now, granted, they were playing the Raiders. The Raiders are not a very good football team, but sometimes you need to kind of you need to build confidence coming into big games. And Joe Burrow is still a good quarterback. I don't care what anybody around the league says. Joe Burrow, I'm worried. Every time they play the Ravens, it's like, man, because Joe Burrow can have a kind of game because he went off in that game when they played a couple of weeks earlier. Baltimore got lucky. I ain't gonna lie, they got lucky. Okay, which is sometimes what you need, but Cincinnati is still. It's just that Cincinnati's defense is still shaky.
Very shaky.
Cincinnati's defense is shaky, and I think the Bengals. I think their coaches let them down more than anything else. I think that their coaching staff is another group of these young, hot shot guys who tend to overthink the football game. Sometimes, like I say, run that ball, and Gesicki, he's going to utilize that tight end. And, I think Jamar Chase, he still needs T. Higgins and some of those guys to help him out. He still needs T. Higgins. He still needs those other guys. And I think they're missing, like I said, T. Higgins really helps keep the pressure off of Jamar Chase. And, that's the thing. That's the guy they need back in that receiving core. But, I think that I don't know if they're going to beat the Ravens this week. I think that the Ravens, I think
prime time.
In prime time,
that should be a beatdown. That should be another Ravens beatdown.
Yeah, it should be. But I never say anything should be. I grew up with somebody where I grew up seeing a team that was an 18-point favorite and choke in a big game. I've seen these things, and Bengals are still a good football team. Let's make that clear.
But to your point, the coaching, I'm looking at the coach. I was thinking about you with about 2.5 minutes left and late subbing. They had no timeouts, and they got burned on that, right? Like they subbed in late, which then, while the clock is running down, which then gave their opposition by rule the opportunity to sub in. They got called for the delay of game, right? So it's like the little stuff like that, or that Jones interception where the wideout, since he's wideout, can't remember his name. You gotta check at that line. You gotta chip. Just the guy Jones blew right by him, okay, and intercepted that for the touchdown. So it's like those coaching things, your game management, your clock management, is your O-line coach, your receivers coach saying, hey man, remember you got to do this, right? Those little things that I don't see creep up with the Baltimore Ravens, by the way, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think in a weird way, I would still say Cincinnati is relevant. Like I talked about last week, maybe looking at the next couple weeks, but I expect the Baltimore Ravens to put Bengals' face in the dirt on Thursday.
So real
I
quick,
hope you're right.
Sapphire, you just said it multiple times. Little things, right? You said
Mhm.
little things, right? That is why Cincinnati is in the position they are right now. They've still lacked
Mhm.
to exceed within those little things. That's what led them to a number of those one position losses. And
Yep.
that's why that they're in the spot in right now. Not even a sense of glory of them, but it's just a glaring issue that I think is always good to bring up because I know I've mentioned it before, we've all mentioned it before. And if the little things that don't show up well, then they lose to Baltimore
Yep.
again. And might remind you that Lamar does have a regular season record of 3-1 in head-to-head matches with Joe Burrow, and that's a matchup that I would think Jackson takes very seriously and definitely looks forward to show he's still the superior quarterback versus him because of the whole stupid debates prior and everything. So yeah, uh, beautiful. Well, I feel like we've gone through quite a bit regarding the matches right now. For those that are wondering why we didn't talk about Pittsburgh, because they were enjoying a nice bye week, chilling and stuff. I wonder where Russell Wilson and Sierra went, probably to Cancun or something.
And to
Who knows?
church.
And yeah, the church in Cancun. The best of both worlds there. But coming back, they will be on the road playing Washington. They will be going up against a young one and only stud in Jaden Daniels and that Washington team, another squad that has really stunned some outsiders and with them being first in their division as well, and showing that they have an identity that they know to work with and use. So, thoughts on Pittsburgh's return? Do they come back, use that extra week of rest, and defeat Washington?
So this was the game that we gave we kind of called last week, and the three of us picked the Steelers for the upset at Washington.
All right, Steelers right there. And
We
yes,
picked
you
them.
are right on
I
that. I just
picked
want to bring
them.
that up again.
Well, I'm hoping Pittsburgh, but then again, those are two teams that they're the Steelers and Washington are two teams that I hope that an earthquake would open up and consume both teams and whatnot because I don't like either one of those teams as a fan. But I don't. I mean, I think that's going to be the Steelers' defense's biggest test of the year, and I think that Jaden Daniels will probably experience some of those growing pains and whatnot that he'll experience just because he's young and that and had to deal with J.J. Watt. And I wonder. I would love to see the game plan that they come up with to try to beat not T.J. Watt, not J.J., but T.J. Watt and that defense. And so and so we're gonna see where this Washington team is right in terms of their development when they play against a team like Pittsburgh. So we'll see.
Yeah,
And
they have the 13th ranked defense. They're giving up over 300 yards per game. This is when we're going to really get a good feel for where Russell Wilson is at.
right, right, and Jaden Daniels, can he deal with the pressure that the Steelers defense is going to put on him? And again, and can he, and then too, can Russell Wilson deal with a rejuvenated Washington defense that's out for bear? They're still because in a few weeks they got a big game again. They got to come to Philadelphia and
Mhm.
whatnot, and they're looking to those types of wins against good teams like that are going to basically tell us where they are in terms of the season. They're going
Yeah,
to it's going to tell us where they are at this juncture of time in their season. So that's where
It,
we are.
it'll also be interesting to see how healed up Jaden is because,
Right.
again, you're playing an AFC North team, those hits.
Yeah.
Going back to the Cincy game, Mr. Hubbard introduced Minshew the third to the AFC North with that hit in the first quarter,
he
like
did.
that popped his shoulder out, right? Like it'll be interesting to see how Jaden Daniels holds up to the physicality of the game if the Steelers can get to him.
Yeah,
Yeah. That would be a big thing.
and the Browns, by the way, are off this week. Good riddance at the moment. So then we move on
Oh,
to
you
the
said good riddance. for the
We
yeah.
all need a break, man. We all
Take a break.
need a break.
They do need a break. I gotta say that those guys need
Everybody
a break.
does,
Anybody,
including
I need a break. We all need a break, but they really
including
need a break.
and including the dogs they use for show there. They too need a break from being in that factory of
How
sadness. I'm
about
just being
that?
honest right now, man.
How
It's
about that?
I don't know. I'm saying nothing new. There's way worse being said. What I'm saying is mild compared
Yeah.
to what's being said out there. People are finna crash out. I just know it. But we'll leave that for another day. But going on within the last matchup, which we were kind of alluding to and speaking about earlier, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, prime time this coming Thursday. All right. I'm going with the Ravens on this.
Yeah, I gotta go with Baltimore. It's gonna be It's gonna be another close game.
Another
But
close game
Baltimore
indeed.
wins in the end.
I think the Ravens are going to clean house. I really think the Ravens are going to put a butt whooping on the Bengals.
Okay.
Beautiful. All right. Well, there you have it right there, folks. And thank you again for coming to another edition of the Fear the North podcast. And please like, share, subscribe. If you like it, we'll be here every Tuesday, 8:30. We only decided to do Monday nights because of the historical day tomorrow within the election day. Go out there, use your right to vote if you so choose to. But
And remember one thing, most stadiums, the opposing sides can get along. And if we can do that in the context of a sporting event, y'all, please just be careful out there, respect each other. We have our differences, but we're Americans, man. Please, 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 please treat each other with kindness.
yes,
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
Mm.
I would
yes,
tend to, and I would hope that would be the case, but we'll
yeah.
see.
And well, the one thing Americans surely make sure they do is go to
And
X
vote.
and follow the Fear the North podcast. You can follow us at Fear the North #4, the number four for 4 teams that is within the division. So at Fear the North 4, that is the X page that you can follow us at for updates and more content and everything else coming ahead soon. But yes, please stay safe. Good night. Thank you all for tuning in. And I'm Irie Harris, along with Sapphire, Chris Murray. Lovely, smooth operators we are. And until next time.
Take it easy.